This is KGW News at noon.
Well, Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us at noon. I'm Blair Best. It's the end of a holiday season, and a lot of people will be heading home today. And after the ice, wind, and rain that we've seen over the last 2 weeks, we're getting a much-needed break today. Let's start things off with Chris McGinnis, who's in for Rod today. And Chris, for people driving home, it will be mostly dry on the roads.
Yeah, and certainly a quieter weather, right, than where we were, say, at the beginning of this whole holiday season. I did want to point out, though, that there is some rain offshore. None of this actually reaching the ground just yet on any of the observations from Newport up to Tillamook. But there's a chance that some of this works its way inland over the next 4 to 6 hours, so we could see a few sprinkles maybe in the Willamette Valley. The bigger thing today is the wind. With that storm center offshore, it's really inducing a gusty east wind through the Columbia River Gorge. East wind sustained out at Troutdale at 24, but we have had measured wind gusts of nearly 50 miles an hour in Troutdale and surpassing 60 miles an hour in Corbett. So that east wind, not everybody's feeling it, but those of you that are really feeling a little sting in the air because the temperature is only 43 at PDX. So when you factor in the breeze, it feels more like the lower to middle 30s across much of the region west of the Cascades. On the east side, Burns started off the morning well below zero. You have recovered so far up to 20, and we'll continue warming a bit there. Live look from our Rose City sky camera. It's 43 degrees at PDX. Again, the east wind sustained at the airport at 18 miles an hour. So the feels like temperature is more like the lower 30s. And I think that remains the case the rest of the day. Lots of clouds and just the slightest chance of a sprinkle or light rain shower getting in here later this afternoon. Blair, the sunset today, adding just a little bit of time here, a little daylight. We're up to 4:38 now with the sunset for January 2nd.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Well, Southwest Airlines says it's back to a normal schedule today after massive problems led to thousands of canceled flights. NBC's Blaine Alexander has the latest from Atlanta.
Well, this is one of the busiest travel days of the year. With the holidays now officially behind us, a lot of people are heading home from the holidays. This is the back bookend of a period that experts say predicted to see more than 113 million holiday season travelers. We're talking about by car and by air. Now, of course, the vast majority of people travel on the roads, but experts say that this year we're seeing about 14% more air travelers than last year. So that means when you get to the airports today, expect some crowds, especially in the wake of what we saw last week with the massive, unprecedented disruptions with Southwest Airlines. Now, over the weekend, the airline apologized once again to its passengers, thanking them for their continued patience and saying that they're largely back on track. And so far today, about 133 cancellations. That's how they started the day. They say that they are back on track to fly their normal operations. But for the many passengers who have already made it home, the headaches still continue. That's because they're trying to get reimbursed. Southwest has set up a special place on its website for people to file receipts and hope for reimbursement for things like hotels and meals, other expenses while they were stranded. If you were caught up in that Southwest mess, experts say that you can also check with the credit card company that you used to book your initial flight. They say depending on the travel insurance that was part of your original booking, you could be entitled to some reimbursement there as well. Back to you.
Well, the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students should be in the courtroom tomorrow. He's in custody and will be brought from Pennsylvania to Idaho to face charges. And now we're hearing from his parents for the first time and learning new details of the arrest. Angelique Kakade from our sister station in Seattle has the latest.
Well, Coburger's public defense attorney Jason Labar says he plans to waive his extradition hearing while in court this Tuesday. That should expedite his return, and he could be back in Idaho as soon as Tuesday night or into Wednesday morning. As you said, the arrest happened on Friday at his parents' home after driving cross country with his father on December 17th, a trip the attorney said was planned. Now, by Saturday in Pennsylvania, Coburger was home with his parents when they got a knock at the door and saw their house surrounded by police. On Sunday, Coburger's parents released this statement reading in part, "First and foremost, we care deeply for the 4 families who have lost their precious children. There are no words that can adequately express the sadness we feel, and we pray each day for them." And the Coburger family statement goes on to say that as a family, they will love and support their son and brother. Labar says the family is cooperative but taken aback. Meanwhile, he says Coburger was shocked by his arrest and that his client is eager to be exonerated.
What they're hearing is not the Brian they know and love, so it's really out of character.
Now, Washington State University police assisted in the execution of search warrants Friday at Kohberger's apartment and office, both of which are located on the WSU Pullman campus. Now, police are expecting to unseal a probable cause statement once a suspect returns to Idaho. In that statement, we could likely learn how they connected the suspect to the crimes. Now, keep in mind, still a lot of information investigators have not released, such as a motive, if he knew the victims, and the murder weapon still has not been found, according to police.
Police have made an arrest in a shooting on East Burnside and 122nd Avenue. It happened around 8:30 last night. Portland police say witnesses and surveillance footage led them to 60-year-old Parrish Riggins Jr. When they arrested him, they found a gun and several drugs, including fentanyl pills. The victim in the shooting is expected to survive. Well, Portland is off to a deadly start on the roads this year. A driver in a stolen car crashed early Sunday morning and died. It happened in this small dead-end neighborhood off Southeast Division Street. We talked to a neighbor who's lived here for 10 years. He was hitting the road early to go snowboarding when he heard the crash around 2:30 Sunday morning.
People would assume, like, something on I-84 or something on I-5. But when you say it's a dead-end neighborhood and that there was a fatal crash, that hurts a lot.
Both 2021 and 2022 were particularly deadly on the roads, reaching levels that we haven't seen since 1990. There is a new state law, though, that could help reverse this deadly trend. The law, which is now in effect, allows city and county officials to lower speed limits, as opposed to traffic engineers in Oregon's Department of Transportation. There is a public memorial today in Santos, Brazil, to remember soccer legend Pelé. Thousands of mourners lined up outside the soccer stadium to say goodbye. His family, including his wife, also gathered around his body and held hands as his son said a prayer. On Tuesday, a procession carrying his coffin will pass through the streets of Santos, ending at a cemetery where he will be buried in a private ceremony. Pelé died last Thursday at the age of 82 after battling colon cancer. And the body of Pope Benedict is laying in state today at the Vatican. Benedict died on Saturday at the age of 95 in the Vatican, where he had lived since his surprising resignation in 2013. Vatican police estimated today that about 40,000 people had moved through the basilica in the first 6 hours of the doors being open to the public. His funeral, which will be led by Pope Francis, is Thursday morning at St. Peter's Square. Tennis great Martina Navratilova says she has been diagnosed with throat cancer and breast cancer. The 18-time Grand Slam singles champion said in a statement today that her prognosis is good and she will start treatment this month. Navratilova said she noticed an enlarged lymph node in her neck in November, and a biopsy showed early-stage throat cancer. While Navratilova was undergoing tests on her throat, the unrelated breast cancer was then discovered. Well, Oregon's new paid leave program began with the arrival of the new year. Now, through the program, most workers are eligible for up to 12 weeks of paid leave each year. Art Edwards takes a look at how it all works.
Paid Leave Oregon will give workers the chance to take paid time off to handle challenging moments in their lives.
Well, I think it's very exciting that Oregon is a trendsetter in this area and that we're one of the first states to be implementing paid leave.
The program, developed by the Oregon Employment Department, provides paid leave for things like the birth or adoption of a child, serious injury or illness, for taking care of a seriously ill family member, and for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, or harassment.
Really takes, again, that burden off of folks' shoulders to know that it's not going to be leave that they're going to have to take unpaid, or they could potentially lose their job.
The program is funded by a trust fund. All workers in Oregon will pay 0.6% of their gross wages into the fund every paycheck.
For $5,000 in gross wages, the employee would pay $30.
Businesses with more than 25 employees would contribute an additional 0.4% to fund the program. For every $5,000 gross wages paid, businesses would pay $20. Businesses with fewer than 25 employees are not required to pay into the program. Federal and tribal governments are also exempt. While funds are going into the trust fund now, paid leave benefits won't start being paid until September.
We need to build up that state trust fund. So we need that time between January and September to build up a couple quarters worth of contributions, so that come September, we'll be able to pay the benefits to those folks who apply and are eligible.